Good morning, students. Now we take the linguistics theory, especially the Ferdinand de Saussure's theory of structuralism. First of all, we introduce the topic, what's the structuralism? Structuralism is the part of linguists, anthropology and literary theory. This lecture is published in 1915. The structuralism had its origins, especially under the Lang and Parrott, and the father of this theory related to the relational theory of language. Or here we read the significant moves, signifier and signified, and also we describe the structure, especially the synchronic study and the diachronic study regarding the linguistics. First of all, structuralism. Structuralism is a method used by sociologists, anthropologists and linguistics or other people to show all the aspects of culture. Here I arise a question. What do you understand the concept of culture? Culture in the context of literature, in the context of television, in the context of reportage, and especially we focus on the tradition. And all the cultures are based upon some underlying structure, especially we take example wall. Wall structured form hai, but when we take the bricks are the small units of that particular unit, or we arrange the bricks in a very systematic or semantic order, that is called structure. After Second World War, especially in 1950s in France, chaos in an environment, everything is shattered. It is an intellectual moment. What's the intellectual moment? Structuralism is an intellectual moment where Ferdinand de Saussure give much more emphasis on the theory of structuralism. And Claude Lévi-Strauss firstly used structuralism. Here we again arise a question, what is language? Language was a system of sign, and under this construction we read two concepts, one is Lang and second is Parrott. What do you understand by the Lang? Lang is the complete system of language, and where the Parrott an individual language people in its context to Lang. Especially Lang has the dialectical method or your native language, or Parrott we study in each or every language of the linguistics. Lang or language has the universal approach. Or especially we focus now on the, after we discuss the Lang and Parrott, we describe the concept of signifier and signified. Signified and signified, especially we discuss the signifier and signified, we focus mainly on the sign. What is the sign? Sign is an object or thing, especially as suppose you give an example of an apple. Apple is a sign. When you hear the word apple, so you have the symbolic meaning. We take the example, especially a red rose. So again it is the symbolic meaning. Symbolic meaning when you hear the word shine, especially apple or red rose. So here the signifier moves. Signifier physical existence of that image. Suppose a red leaf, round apple. The meanings are maintained by the convention, by the situation, and you create an image in your mind. A signifier moves to the signified, and when we read the signified, so the mental concept, especially the mental concept or the final meaning of that word. First of all, we take the image of sign. Sign gives a meaning in your cognitive process, and the cognitive process again gives the symbol of the real or concrete meaning, that is called signified. And in this context we also discuss the diachronic and synchronic approach of the language. Here under the diachronic or synchronic approach, first of all we try to draw the meaning of this concept. First of all, synchronic. Syn means us together. So synchronic linguistic is the study of linguistic in its own time, in its specific time. or in its a separate era. And again we discuss the diachronic approach of the linguistic. Di means through, chron again time. So diachronic is how linguistics change over the time. In nutshell, I want to say that what is the diachronic study? Diachronic study starts from the zero and we again move again and again. So it starts zero to till now. That is called diachronic approach. Or synchronic approach in nutshell, it studies in its own time in a specific era. Suppose karo ki we give the focus on the Elizabethan age. So that is the study of the particular era Elizabethan age, that is called synchronic approach. Or if we study the Chaucer age to the modernism, that is called diachronic approach. That starts to the 12th century to till now. Synchronic linguist views a particular state of a language at some given point in time. This could mean modern English of the present day as the systematic analysis of the system of Shakespearean English. However, comparisons are made to other state of language or other times. The defining difference between the diachronic and synchronic linguistic study has to do with time. Here we focus on the time. First of all linguistic study prior to Chaucer was diachronic, and the word diachronic does a pretty good job of describing itself. Di is a Greek prefix and used a loan words that means through, between, across, by, akin to. The root word chronic entered English as a loan word from the Latin, which was taken from the Greek chronos, meaning the time. So diachronic linguistic is the study of language across through the time. Or on the other hand, synchronic linguistic studies language in a fixed time or in a fixed period without any reference to any other language in history. And now we understand this topic with a graph. Suppose we start the 12th century, again 14th century, again 16th century, again 18th century, 20th century and 21st century. Suppose we start the English period from 20th century. Then we move on 14th century. That is called Age of Chaucer. Then we move on 16th century, that is called Elizabethan age. Especially is it known Shakespearean era. Then we move 18th century, Victorian compromise. Victorian era, that is the period of transition. Again परिवर्तन का युग था 18th century. Then we move on the 20th century, the modern era, and 20th century, ultra modern era, where we meet all the problems regarding the modernism. So when we start the diachronic approach from 12th century to till now, especially in the 20th century, that is called diachronic. And especially we study especially the 20th century, that is called modern era, that is called the synchronic approach of the diachronic linguistic. Synchronic approach to linguistics. So according to Chaucer, synchronic linguistics will concern the logical and psychological relation that bind together coexisting terms and form a system in the collective mind of the speaker. Diachronic linguistics, as in the contrary, will study the relation that bind together successive terms not perceived by the collective mind but sophisticated for each other without forming a system or a relation.